Okay, got some sound here. Hello, hello, hello. Sound. There's a sound. We've got sound. Do we have any sound? Is it recording? Silly laptop. I've got any sound. It's going to be out there. Is there any sound? Come on, let's see. The sound. I'll do the recording. No, I'll end the stream and start again. Why is there no sound at the moment? Let's see. I'll find if there's sound. Let's do a sound check and see. There's sound. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to BWTN Sports. Unfortunately, for whatever reason it is, the interview I did with Bermane Stiverne cut out while I was recording on the OBS. It's not my laptop I'm using, so I just set up the OBS. So it cut out, but there's a lot of information on the interview that I really want to summarize for you, so you know as boxing fans what's been going on. So he starts the interview off talking about the first fight, how he believes that Joshua should never have been in Miami because fighting from the UK coming to America, it's very easy as a celebrity or as a world heavyweight champion to get yourself caught up in the wrong crowds or to get disrespected. And he felt that going to Miami was the worst place he could have gone to prepare. Why didn't he prepare New York? It was the worst place for him to prepare Miami with all the celebrity status and all the other celebrities being around him. It was a big distraction, he felt. The other thing he said, he wanted to mention that talked about Andy Ruiz, having sparred with Andy Ruiz before, and how physically strong Andy Ruiz is. And he basically said, regarding Andy Ruiz, he doesn't know why they selected Andy Ruiz. He said, the minute they selected Andy Ruiz, he knew that Ruiz would knock Joshua out because how physically strong he is, his boxing experience, and having sparred with Ruiz before, he knew. And he said there were two people in his career he wouldn't want to face. He said it was Chris Arreola, and he said Andy Ruiz. I said, why is that? He said basically because they're both Mexican and they're both tough. He didn't want any part of any of those two. So he talked about that. He then went on to talk about how he feels Joshua's changed as a fighter. He said when he met Joshua before, things were kind of cool, but since he became champion and then he started making several defenses, he said the attitude of Joshua changed somewhat. Like he's not the same guy. Then we went on to talk about the weight loss that Joshua had. He says, he can lose as much weight as he wants, but it's not a physical thing. The fight between him and Ruiz is not a physical thing, but it's a mental thing, an emotional thing. He says guys like Joshua, when they get beat the way that Joshua got beat, they don't come back from that. And he says, because the way they are, his career has been built on being, he says he's looking like Tyson Beckford or a bodybuilder or superhero. He said a lot of people look at Andy Ruiz and look at his body shape and think, well, because he's a fat guy, people overlook him. But then they look at Joshua and they think, well, because Joshua looks the way he does, he should beat Andy Ruiz. But that's how Andy Ruiz has fooled the whole world, and he'll fool the world again. He says, let me tell you now, Andy Ruiz is way too strong for Anthony Joshua. Way too strong. I said, but what about Joshua dropped Andy Ruiz? He says, well, people get dropped in boxing. But he said, think about this. When Ruiz got dropped, what happened? He got up and he knocked Joshua out. When Joshua went down, what happened? He got knocked out. So think about it. He said, think about this a second. I said, what do you think of the weight loss? He says, well, listen. He goes, I said, what about sparring? What have you heard about sparring? He says, listen to me. I said, in terms of sparring, and Joshua sparring in his camp, he says, I said, I've been hearing Joshua's been knocking people out in sparring. He says, yes. Who? And then he laughed and he went, some of the people that were in that camp should never have been in that camp. I said, I know the people in that camp, and there is no reason why they should have been in that. Listen to me. He's getting knocked out again. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, from what I understand, from somebody who was in that camp talking to somebody else, as I understand, he was getting beaten up inside the ring in sparring and getting dropped and hurt in sparring. Basically, he was saying that the camp didn't go well for Joshua, and he hasn't recovered from the first defeat. He says, and according to the people that have been sparring with him, he said, well, to cut a long story short, he didn't really rate the sparring partners that were in there with Joshua. And I started talking to him about technical sparring. And he said to me, "What's technical sparring?" I said, "Technical sparring is when you like work on things." I said, "Dad, Takam in sparring." According to David Hay, Takam came into camp to spar, and Joshua would do technical sparring with him. He says, "Listen, I can guarantee you now, Andy will do no technical sparring." I says, "In all my career, and even being world heavyweight champion, I never did no technical sparring. This is all I know is about sparring. I might have heard of light sparring, I might have heard of body sparring, but I've never heard of technical sparring." He goes, "So I don't know what that's all about." But anyway, he goes, "I guarantee you that Ruiz has had hard sparring and he's brought in good sparring. Ruiz don't mess." And then he talked about, I talked to ask him about what he thought about Joshua telling people that if he beats Ruiz, he should everyone should bow before him. He's built for it and he's a king. And Bermane started laughing. He went, "Well, you know, this guy, this sounds like things like Lord of the Rings. Is the more I listen to Joshua, he sounds like talking about king and and people bowing before him." He laughed. He went, "This is Lord of the Rings stuff. Is this real?" And then he went on to say, "Okay, that's what he believes. Okay." He says, "Only you guys that side of the water." So what do you mean, you guys? And I don't talk like that. He says, "Only you guys that side of the water talk that stuff." I said, "Well, what about when Joshua talks about killer military mindset and killer mindset?" He says, "Ah, yeah, that's now he's talking like us, the other side of the water." He says, "Now he's talking like an American." He says, "Anyway, all that kind of talk don't mean nothing." He says, it all matters what happens inside the ring." I said, "Okay." I said, "You know, I was meant to be on that card." He went, "I went, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, I was meant to be replacing Molina." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I was going to be originally on that card. I was going to fight instead of Molina." I said, "Okay." Then he went on, started revealing about the Wilder fight, the rematch. He went, "Listen, let me tell you the truth about what happened in that fight." He says, "I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but this is how it went. They wanted me to take step aside money for the Wilder fight. I took the step aside money. I was going to take the step aside money. I said, you know what, let me fight Brazil." So I was training 6 weeks into camp for the Brazil fight, right? And Ortiz failed. And as Ortiz failed, they called me back in to fight Wilder 6 weeks into camp. They called me to fight Wilder with a week and something to go. And I took the fight against Wilder. I'd prepared to fight Dominic Brazil. And I was told, basically, to fight Wilder, I wouldn't get to. And then he says, my promoter, Don King, backed me. He says, but the person that forced me to fight Wilder has more power than Don King. He said, I'm mentioning no names. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. What I'm telling you is that this person has far more power than Don King. That's all I'm saying to you. And that's how that situation came about. He says, and as for Joe Joyce, he says, you know what I can do. He says, you know how I fight. And he says, the way I fought against Joe Joyce wasn't good enough. He said, if Sam Jones is listening, tell Sam Jones we can run that back. Tell Sam Jones we can run. So wherever Sam Jones is, tell him we can run that back. Nothing personal, but we can run that back if he wants it. If Joe Joyce wants it, we can run that back again. Because I know I can do better. So some interesting stuff there by Stiverne, talking about Joshua's mindset and his setup and what he was doing in Miami and why was he in Miami. And he believes the rematch, what they've been doing in camp with Joshua is getting him to box and move and not get hit by Ruiz. That's the strategy they're going to use. Get out there, box Ruiz, and try not to engage and not to get hit. He says, that's fine. For about 2 rounds, Joshua's going to use the jab and box and try and keep. He says, but if you look at whole of Joshua's career, from his amateur career to his professional career, when have you seen Anthony Joshua box like? You've never seen him box like in the amateurs. You've never seen him box like in the pros. He's always gone in and tried to get stuck in. So now he's going to try and box like that for 2 rounds. Wait. He says, then Ruiz is going to catch up with him because he'll go back to form. He'll go back to type. You can't change that. in a few months' time. You can't change what you naturally do in a few months. He then went on to talk about. We all went on to talk about Deontay Wilder. He went, listen. He says you've got to give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, Deontay Wilder is the man. Listen, that man is on fire at the moment. That man is on absolute fire. He says, Lewis Ortiz had a great game plan until he got hit. So Deontay Wilder is he's a man on fire. So what do you think of Tyson Fury? He says, why did Tyson Fury fight Otto Wallen in his last fight? Surely he should be fighting somebody who is, going to prepare him to fight Deontay Wilder. So I don't know why he fought Otto Wallen. So he didn't really go into what he thought would win between Wilder and Fury, but he just basically said that Wilder is on fire at the moment. And then he went on to talk about Michael Hunter and Povetkin, and he said, I really really hope that Michael Hunter beats Povetkin, because he deserves it. He's a good fighter. So that was it. So for those people who missed out on that interview with Stiverne, we're really sorry. It wasn't on my laptop. It was, I borrowed his laptop and I installed the OBS. And for whatever reason, do not ask me what the reason or why it happened. We started recording the interview and it only recorded 13 minutes of the interview when it was a whole 40-minute interview. So that's Stiverne's overview of Ruiz versus Joshua 2, the rematch. So that's it. So my apologies again, but that's his overview of the fight. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. This is BW Team Sports and we're out. Have a great evening. Take care.